Have you ever thought about what defines your personality? Is it your talents, your gift, things that you're really good at, your achievements? What about the things that are challenges for you, the things that are difficult to overcome? Perhaps the things that people don't see, but maybe in the end, that would be some of the things you're most proud of, the things you've overcome, the blockages, the insecurity, the uncertainty. Welcome. My name is Charlotte Westerheim at Dancing Astrologer. Today I want to talk about Saturn, and I want to talk about what Saturn means in your chart, what it means for us personally. I'm going to go through each of the house placement to take a good look at wherever Saturn shows up in your chart. That will be your school for life. That will be your classroom for life. Something you have to overcome, something you have to get better of grasping, something you feel as a real challenge for you. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what does Saturn mean. So what Saturn stands for is the rules, the regulations, the structure of a society, and also the structure of the day-to-day lives. It means where we take, or we need to take responsibility. It means where we need to sometimes face boundaries and limitations and simply reality. It also where we are called to have patience when we don't have patience at all. There's a time issue with Saturn. It is not going to be rushed. Everything has to mature in its own time before it will manifest. There is the accountability as well. You did something, you have to take accountability for it. It's on you. But sometimes with Saturn, we want to push things away. It's somebody else's fault. It's not us. So taking accountability for your actions or your non-actions is part of the maturity process that Saturn is asking us to do. I want to try and pull out these slides just to give you an idea of what it looks like when Saturn goes through each of the houses. So the first house is us, ourselves, how you go out about in the world. And whatever ascending sign you have, you will have a flavor of Saturn if it is in your first house, especially if it's sitting very near your ascending sign. It can, even if you have like a Sagittarius ascending sign or Aries, if you have Saturn there, it might slow everything down in terms of that fire about this going forward. You will be more hesitant, more considerate, you'll be more aware of, that you need to speak or think before you speak, or you consider before you take action. So if you have Saturn in the first house, it can feel like you have this heavy responsibility from a young age, that somehow there was nobody but yourself you could count on. And this gives you confidence, but it also means that there is a lot of burden on you from an early age that you need to overcome. Something might happen that people around you in your family are counting on you to take some sort of responsibility or accountability for the family or a situation. So even though you might be ridden with a lot of guilt when you grow up, that you feel, am I able to do this? People are counting on me. You put yourself to the side. You also have this challenge in order to learn through mastery of becoming your own steward, the one that rules your own life in a way that you are prepared for from an early age. It is about self-discipline. It's about building that character from the bottom up, and you are the one doing it. So if you have Saturn in your second house, that represents more like the self-worth struggles that you might have. You might feel issues around self-worth, and if you're good enough just as you are, when you don't perform, when you don't achieve just for being. A lot of us grow up with the feeling that we need to do something to be loved or be acknowledged for our self-worth. And this can come up in the second house. And the other thing is there can be these financial insecurity situations where you feel there's not enough, or you have to struggle to make ends meet. Or there might even be issues around you under-evaluate your contribution. Let's say you have work and you find it really hard to ask for a pay rise, even if you clearly deserve it. So what you are learning to master here with Saturn in your second house is that you have self-worth just because you are. You don't need to perform. You don't need to, prove anything. And you have to find that self-validation within yourself, which is not an easy task, because we all search for some validation on the outside to confirm that we are good enough. So this is a real challenge for second house Saturn. They have to build that self-confidence from the inside and out. Finding that lasting value where you don't seek always the approval from other people in order to feel good about yourself. And you need to find also, allowing that financial values or financial abundance to come into your life and feel that you deserve it. And that is also one of the big mastery lessons from Saturn in this house. Third house Saturn. There can be difficulties around expressing how you think, your thoughts, feeling of not being heard or what you want to communicate from an early age, and also fear around feeling misunderstood and not fitting in, and just feeling that you don't have, you're not in the right place in terms of when you start to express who you are and what you feel. There is this feeling that I'm not being heard. And there can be an insecurity around communication, and in early schooling that you feel awkward, you feel like the odd one out, you don't fit in. And what are the mastery lessons that Saturn is asking of us in the third house is to really become fluent in communicating your truth, your style of speaking and connecting with other people, and having that mental discipline as well to say, I connect with who you are, and try and not let yourself stop and be blocked by insecurity about whether you have something valuable to share that other wants to hear. You have to be your own teacher, so to speak, and encourage and support yourself in speaking up and feeling that your opinion is of value and it matters, as well as others. Fourth house Saturn here is in the area where you can feel some issues around belonging in the family, that there is some burdens around in the family, something that's heavy, something that is something that you somehow get involved with and worry about, and you feel some sort of responsibility within the family sphere. And it might sometimes be that you don't feel belonging in the family, and that one of the things you need to master is to find out what are your values in the family. And even if you sometimes feel that there's lacking of a strong foundation in the family structure you were born into, there is a mastery in finding those like-minded people you feel that you belong with and you feel an emotional connection with, and it's not always our family. Of course, you might also master that within your own family, overcoming those burden or issues. It could be financial hardship, it could be that somebody needs extra care and attention in the family, which means somebody else will go without. All these things are issues you might have to master in order to feel that inner stability and belonging in a family structure, in order to go out in the life and shine. Fifth house Saturn. This is the house of creativity and self-expression. So when you have Saturn here, it can feel like you're very shy and you are very hesitant about expressing who you are. Your creativity, feeling of it's weird, or people will not understand it, or people think you're too much, and that therefore you hold back a bit and sort of dim your own life. a light, but it's very important to connect with that inner child within yourself and your own creativity and dare to express it. In some cases, the Saturn in the 5th house, it become really is a significance of you learning to live as your livelihood by your creative talents, and you make that your way forward. So in a way, you master your creative talents and you go out in the world and that becomes your livelihood. So you need to discipline your creativity. You need to, let's say you want to be a writer. It's really about sitting down every day and make it your job to get, as a amount of pages written on that day in order to produce, in order to go out in the world and, show you have something to show for. You have created this and you've done that through hard work, which is what Saturn stands for. 6th house Saturn, that can be this, Virgo or 6th house, there's already this feeling that I have to be perfect. And if you have Saturn here, that kind of enhances the feeling of having to be perfect. And nothing less than perfect is good enough. So there is this inner whip, if you like, on yourself to do better, perfect something that you did, redo it until you feel it is perfect, and it never kind of is. Your mastery through Saturn in the 6th house is really about finding out that at some point it is good enough. If you put your all into it, stop being so judgmental of yourself. If you feel you have come to a level where you master it, you need to let it go. Trust that it's good enough as it is, and it's the best you can do. Stop second guessing yourself. Master the output that that you have given your all self to in order to make it the best product or whatever it is. If it's something you master a skill, trust that it's good enough. And this is a really, really hard thing for Saturn 6th house, because there's a feeling that I can always do more. Sometimes you need to let other people do their part as well, and it's not all on your shoulders to get something done. 7th house Saturn, here we can have relationship issues that in a way we really want to have that long-term relationship here, like marriage, or we want to have good relationship with partners, like business partners, for example. But there can be these issues around overgiving, taking more responsibility for the quality of the relationship than the other part is doing. So it kind of falls on the shoulders of the Saturn 7th house person to do more and to be more responsible, to think that they need to take more care of all the issues in a relationship or marriage than the other part is perhaps doing. So and this is all linking to needing approval from the partner, or needing that validation from the partner. So what you need to mature here and grow up within yourself is to have the strong boundaries or have some equality and some balance in the relationship, where the give and take is somehow balancing itself out. That is not always a one-way train. And you need to mature that part in you that seek that validation and approval from your partner all the time, that makes you go out of your way to, give everything to your partner. 8th house Saturn is, here we are in the realm of trust issues and about what do you need, what do you dare to share. Very often Saturn in the 8th house, they are withholding a lot within themselves because they have this fear of being betrayed if they open up, or they're skeptical to other people's motives. So they wait and simply hold themselves back out of fear of losing face or being vulnerable. So what you need to grow up in this house is really a bit more of emotional resilience, a little bit more inner strength, that even if you share something vulnerable, this means that you feel anchored within yourself, and there's no humiliation in sharing something vulnerable. Instead, that will allow you to connect with other people on a more emotional and mature level. So there is also this whole issue with the 8th house, that you need to transform those insecure feelings about yourself and this fear of rejection or fear of not being accepted into a more like resilience and more authentic version of yourself. 9th house, Saturn. Here we're talking more about especially the learning, if not feeling intelligent enough, not feeling that you know enough, and therefore you cannot speak up because you look at other people and you compare yourself, what they know, what they study, and you always feel you come out short. So what you need to grow and mature within yourself here is to trust. If you study hard, it's another Saturn lesson. You've done your part. You have dedicated yourself to your studies or whatever it is that you need to grow and mature in this area of learning. That you do it, and you do it honestly to yourself, and by doing that you find that pride in what you know is at a certain level that you can also be proud of. You don't need to shrink in order to feel that you have to hold back what you can contribute with in terms of what you learned and what you put together yourself. Sometimes you see teachers with Saturn in the 9th because they overcome this fear and they learn and master how to take the knowledge and share it with other people. And that can be like the ultimate way of overcoming the Saturn in the 9th. Saturn in the 10th, here we have the house of success, like in a public space, you know, how other people see you, how you look in the public space. And this can be a very vulnerable place to have Saturn. In one way, it can have that feeling that I will never succeed, I will never be good enough in the eyes of, you know, my parents, my society, people I look up to. And there is simply this fear of failure. So sometimes you don't do things you want to do because you are so paralyzed by the fear of failing that you just don't do it, because at least you can say to yourself, oh, I didn't even try, so it's fine. But here is the big lesson, and it is to become your own authority, to overcome that you might fail something a few times before you master it, and that is okay. That is what we all need to go through. And once you dare to take that leadership in your purpose, life purpose, your business, your career, for example, or how other people see you, that you dare to take on that leadership that Saturn also is asking of you to do, and not hide under somebody else's leadership, and you are asked and pushed to take that leadership yourself of your own life, and thereby also maybe become like a real inspiration for other people in how you do it. Rather than just saying it, you're doing it, and people will look to you and say, wow, this person masters real, true leadership. Saturn in the 11th house. So here is a feeling of sometimes feeling like the outsider, the odd one out. And even though there is a feeling that that's fine, I'm okay to be different, it can also be like an insecurity around it, that secretly you really want to belong, but you don't know how to belong. So what you're asked here is to find like-minded people, find your community, find your network where there's room for you, and everybody can be different, and it's okay. You don't need to conform to be accepted. You can be who you are. This can take some time, and you might seek different community and groups, and even in friendship you can feel like the odd one out. But as you mature this part of you, this is where you find your tribe, you find where you belong, and that there's room for everybody and their uniqueness. So finally, we have the 12th house, Saturn. And here there can be, because of the 12th house, and the 12th house can be a little sort of difficult to grasp, because it is so, it can be like spirituality, it can be a feeling of there is something bigger out there, and I don't know how I don't know how I fit in the bigger scheme of things. And There can be the feeling of, I want to do something with my life, I want to connect with something bigger than myself, but I don't know where to go. There can be a fear of the unknown until you find that anchoring within yourself. So you might search for many different spiritual directions, philosophies, and so on, until you understand what feels right for you, what is the spiritual guidance for you, how do you align with your life direction, how do you master yourself in order to live that life that feels authentic and real to you, rather than maybe finding a guru that tells you what to do and how to think and how to be. This is about finding your own spiritual path, aligning with your soul. So these were a few things about how Saturn can show up in our houses. I'm just going to stop sharing. And then I want to talk a little bit about something we all go through, like the Saturn cycle as a generic cycle. So what is so interesting to think about is that every 7th year we have from we are born, Saturn is making a square to its original position in our chart. Then we have a square, then 7 years later we have an opposition, and then again we have a square, and then we have the Saturn return, of course, at 28, 29 years old. So in itself, that is a whole maturity cycle that we all go through. And if you think about it, since Saturn is about boundaries, it's about maturity, and we all meet them around the same time. So when we're 7 years old, we are going kind of from childhood, where we were allowed to play and have fun, and there was not a care in the world, and suddenly we are in a school system around 6, 7, maybe before in some countries. But this is where suddenly there's a discipline. You have to sit at your chair and listen to the teacher. You have to maybe do a little bit of homework. You have to fit in. There is a schedule. There's a time schedule and limitation to your day. You don't no longer have the full day to play around and have fun. And this is the first time we sort of have the first gist of some sort of responsibility and expectations are placed on us. And then we have the opposition to Saturn's placement in our birth chart when we're around 13, 14. And that kind of correlates with this opposition there. This is when we start to become teenagers and we start to rebel against authority, which might be our parents. They don't understand anything, they're stupid, we know it all. And we are at a level in school where we also might object a bit to teachers' way of teaching or whatever. We were beginning to become our own autonomy. At 21, 7 years later, there's another square to Saturn. It's a closing square, and it means at 21, we are maybe in university or finishing university. We are maybe moving away from home. This is the first attempt to sort of create our own life and take responsibility for our own life. We have bills to pay. Suddenly, we have to take care of, rent, living maybe with other people, and we have to take care of things that our parents used to take care of for us. And suddenly this is like we are thrust into more responsibility and to grow up and mature. And finally, when Saturn does a full Saturn return and arrives back at its original place in your birth chart, this is what we call the Saturn return, which is a super important rite of passage for all of us, because here at that point you really should be ideally your own adult person. You should have your full adult autonomy and maturity in terms of making decisions for your own life. Maybe you've been in a job for a few years. Maybe you at this point think, I want to change career because this is not going the way I want to. You're maybe starting a family, getting married, having kids. Suddenly you have to take care of other people. And these milestones in all our lives are really part of Saturn's cycle about maturity in a natural way. And then, of course, in addition to this, we need to see where is Saturn in our natal chart to see where is that special classroom of teaching and mastery for us. And I hope that you find this interesting. I am curious to hear if anybody feels that this resonates with them. If you want to share where your Saturn is in your chart, which house, and if you had any sort of experiences that you have learned and matured from that you want to share with others. I appreciate if you are checking in for the first time to my channel, and I really appreciate as well if you are returning. Thank you for being here, and if you like what I've been talking about, if this is meaningful to you or resonates with you, I appreciate a like or subscription, and I look forward to seeing you next time.